Welcome back, everyone. Now that we have seen conditional statements, if statements, if, else if, and else branching in action, let's just take a step back and use this video recording, use these next 10 minutes to improve our Java vocabulary. We're going to look into certain terms, Java jargon that we can use down the road, or when we hear, we can understand what is being talked about. Now, one thing I want to start with is that I want to ask you to pay attention to this if block. Do you remember how we, for example, look at the censor method, right? How do we call the censor method? We call the method by name, and we pass a parameter, we pass an argument based on the method's signature. If statements are nothing, I mean, you can look at if statements the same way as you look at any method. We have the name of the method called if, we have the area, the space where we can add a parameter, and obviously our if method only accepts a Boolean parameter, right? And when we call this method and pass in the parameter, we get to execute the method block. However, there is one specialty of this method. This method does not always get executed. This method gets executed only if the parameter is true. So if number is not greater than 0, which means this parameter is false, then this method is not going to be executed. Another specialty of if method is that it can be branched. Branch means it can have multiple conditions. First condition is number is going to be greater than 0. If it's not greater than 0, I'm going to look at another branch of an if statement, and this branch is going to have a special syntax. It's going to be called not another if, not just if, it's going to be called else if. So this else if method is going to be branched with the if method, and it will still have the same signature. It will still accept Boolean only. And this method's block will be executed only if this Boolean is correct. I'm sorry, if this Boolean is true. Another specialty of an if method is that it has another branch called else, and else branch is special because it does not accept a parameter. Else branch's parameter is defined based on whatever the if branch says. If all the branches of if statement or the if method are false, obviously else branch is going to be true, because else is meant for every other condition that is not true for these branches out here. So we learned that what I wanted to remind you is that if is similar to any method we develop. It's special because it accepts only Boolean, and it will execute its block only if the Boolean carries a true value. It can be branched out by else if and else methods. Else if method accepts parameter, again Boolean parameter, that's going to have to be true for the else if block to run, and else block will run only if all the other branches of if statement are not true. Another specialty, else if and else, they cannot be on their own. If you want to create an else if branch, you have to have an if branch. However, you can have multiple if branches if you don't want to deal with else if and else branches. You can have multiple individual if statements, but this is waste of resources, and this might slow down your processing speed. And we looked at it, from the perspective that, for example, in this example here, if the number is greater than 0, if this turns out true, then what will happen is these other statements will not even run. A compiler will short circuit this if branch, and it will just run this block, this if block. Okay. However, in the examples below, if this becomes true, compiler will still proceed and check this additional if statement on line 33, and it doesn't matter what this returns, it will check this additional additional if statement on line 37, etc., etc. This usage might be necessary somewhere because you might be checking for number being greater than 0. You might be checking for some other variable like string being not equal to certain number, certain other string. You might have multiple if statements. However, if they do the same thing, they check the same variable, it is not a good idea to have a code written like this. It shows a poor programming, poor developing skills. There's nothing wrong with this. Actually, sometimes I even start programming like this, but I never leave my program like this. I always move to if, else, else, or other conditional statements that we will see down the road. Okay, so this is one thing that I wanted to go over, and I will leave this video here, and in the next video we will look at another concept called nesting, and I will be looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you for your time.